Hi, I'm Professor Beck Strah.
And I'm Professor Eric Bronson, and you're listening to Prison Breakdown.
2, 3, break!
Hate to spoil his fun, but we're gonna bust out of here.
2, 3, break!
I'm locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
2, 3, break!
I can honestly say I'm a changed man. No danger to society here. God's honest truth.
2, 3, break!
I'm not leaving this cell. I'll get out my way. The right way.
2, 3, break!
Ahoy, dudes! Welcome back to Prison Breakdown, your premier prison podcast hosted by me, former corrections officer, current professor, and my co-host, Eric Bronson, who is a former classification guy?
Classification and treatment officer?
There you go.
Yeah.
And current professor.
Yeah, I guess some might call you that. Yeah. I'm current professor. Try to be. And producer Britt,
Hello.
who is not a former corrections officer or classification and treatment officer.
No, I've been in jail.
Yeah. All of us have firsthand experience inside of correctional institutions, just
Indeed.
in different ways.
And I believe producer Britt is now an officer of the mail.
I am. I
Nice.
guess you could say that. Sure.
Do you get a badge?
I don't believe so. No. I'm sure there's some sort of like ID that you have of some sort, but I don't think I get a badge. Not until I join the mail police.
Oh,
Postmaster
cool.
General. Postmaster Generals, huh?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get does the Postmaster General have like stars like a general?
Yeah, I want to be a Postmaster Brigadier General.
Shout out to our friends at the USPS. Thank you for all the good work you do.
Yeah. And always getting us our mail through the horrible weather, right?
Yeah.
The mail bus go through.
It always does. Always does. And speaking of that, how about that wonderful weather out here on the East Coast today, Beck?
Shut up.
It is glorious out there. Man,
I can't hear another word.
I love living in Rhode Island. It is fantastic out there.
Hey, producer Britt, can you edit in like a gunshot off in the distance?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better if it was like lightning?
and then I just don't come back to the podcast.
Lightning and thunder. Professor Bronson will now be played by
his understudy.
Right. So, well, can we get to a little bit of news?
Hell yeah, we can.
Fresh news, hot off the razor wire.
All right. Despite First Step Act, some federal inmates remain in prison extra months. So, if you're not familiar with the First Step Act, this is actually something that relates to our past president, Donald Trump. And one of the things that Donald Trump did was he passed the First Step Act to allow individuals that were nonviolent offenders to get out of prison sooner based on good behavior while they're locked up. So based off the Truth in Sentencing bill that passed a long time ago, that mandated federal inmates serve at minimum 85% of their sentence. The federal bill, the Truth in Sentencing bill that passed, that mandated individuals serve 85% of their sentence. This would allow individuals that were nonviolent federal offenders to leave prison sooner based on their behavior behind bars. However, advocates say they have reviewed numerous instances of inmates remaining behind bars longer than they should be, raising questions about ongoing implementation failures. Specifically, they point to halfway houses and the availability of beds within halfway houses. As a result of them being filled, inmates who are awaiting and have earned based on good behavior, early release, are not able to leave their institutions because part of their sentence, when they leave and go on parole or mandatory supervised release is what it's actually at the federal level, they have to go to a halfway house for a certain amount of time. Well, there simply are not enough halfway houses throughout the country that are contracted with the federal system for this to actually to work properly. So what we've seen are hundreds of inmates who are available and could leave, simply aren't able to do it. So, what's good is that, the people are looking into this, and they're trying to find a way to increase inmates' access to these halfway houses so they can get out earlier. But again, if you're at a halfway house, it's not like you can just walk out of that and start renting someplace. You have to find other housing, you have to find work, and it does create a backlog of individuals that are locked up. So
yeah, so what we're seeing is people, it's this log jam at the head of the funnel where people are so close, and then they can't get that sweet taste of freedom because the system wasn't designed for it in advance, and that sucks.
Yeah.
I hope that they come up with some kind of alternative mechanism soon. Also, let's go back for a second and talk about the First Step Act. It's not great in a lot of ways. Like, sure, it does have some provisions for people to get out sooner, but it is exactly what it sounds like, where it's the first step, but we haven't taken a second step.
Right. No, and so since the First Step Act has been enacted, 33,500 inmates have qualified for it. Now, not all of them have been released. It's simply like what you said. We like to come up with these nice ideas in the United States, and we don't always follow through on them because we don't think about, okay, I can see right here that we have this first step. What's the second, third, fourth, fifth step that we need to think about for reintegrating these individuals back into society?
Yeah, the second step, say there is to be a second step back somewhere along the line. Make more halfway houses, make more alternative mechanisms, maybe like community supervision, and widen the net with, I don't know, more use of like federal probation, parole, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that people are eligible to leave and are still stuck inside.
Right. And here's the other thing. Let's think about possibly not just halfway houses, but home confinement as an alternative to the halfway house. If we have individuals that have an opportunity to go back to their family and be at that house, and follow similar rules that they would have to at a halfway house, where they have to get a job and report back home and have a curfew, all that fun stuff, have a nice little ankle monitor. It's an option that we could move to much quicker than I think trying to, find housing or a space to build halfway houses.
Agreed. But there are plenty of issues with that as well, where privatization has messed up the home confinement system so much that people are paying a significant portion of their paychecks just to be on the outside of prison. And we need more recourse for that. Like get rid of the neoliberal bullshit in here and cut out the independent contractors that are contracting with government, have it government run, or make it like very affordable for people. Like I've heard Jacksonville, Florida, I think the number was $14 or $15 a day just to be on home confinement and have an ankle monitor. Now, if you are working a minimum wage job, that is going to come out to considering maybe you have weekends off, that's going to come out to more than an eighth of your salary. That is not a reasonable cost. And especially for people who also have like other kinds of fines and fees coming out of the criminal justice system. Right. You're just not setting people up for success. And maybe we don't do that. Maybe that's not justice.
Right. No, I don't want to pay $15 a day for anything, let alone if I was broke. That's absolutely not a way to look at justice. But That's
think about it this way. You could get like a Hulu or something like that for like, what, I don't know, almost 3 years for that cost.
Right. No, but I think that, we have this problem in the United States, and much of it relates back to capitalism, that anytime we have the opportunity to look at something as a business, it'll be run as a business, damn it, first. And we forget about the human element to it. And so because somebody was able to find a way to turn halfway houses into a business, that's what their go-to option is for coming out of the federal system. When I was teaching back in Texas, I had a lot of students that worked at some of the halfway houses there in Beaumont, and man, they didn't get paid anything. We're talking about $9, $11 an hour to work at a halfway house. So
that's gross.
Yeah. So, but again, for them, it was all about the bottom line and making sure they had the right number of, they're essentially parolees inside the house. Got to keep the count up, but not pay the staff anything. So.
Sure. Well, the fat cats up top get rich.
Right. Exactly right. So
you own that halfway house. I'm sure you're making some coin.
Definitely. I remember one of my grad students down there got offered the position of being the supervisor of the halfway house, and I think the pay was like $27,000 for a year.
Wow,
yeah.
A whole $27,000.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly
for that kind of responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. So,
yeah, tell them to take a hike.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous.
Yep.
And I hope to see some reform on that in the next few years. Maybe our second step act should be addressing some of this bullshit.
Well, in light of the recent, verdicts in the court case, maybe Donald Trump will be able to benefit from his own first step act and have some, because he's a nonviolent offender and he can get out a little bit early.
Did you see that DeSantis has said he will be able to vote in the state of Florida? Yeah. He won't be, no matter what the sentence is, he won't be disenfranchised,
right? Because
he's going to be treated differently than
because DeSantis,
all those other people.
Because DeSantis is all about being taking care of, being progressive and taking care of inmates and their rights.
Yeah, it's a standard guy.
So that's the news for today, folks.
Love to hear it. Thank you, Eric, for sharing that with us. Now, let's move on to the topic of the day. Today, we are talking about magic in prisons.
Nice. Oh.
Now, tell me, what do you two know about magic in prisons?
Well, when you're in Azkaban,
Azkaban.
Oh, Azkaban, yeah, Azkaban, whatever the hell it is, right? You do your little wizard magic in there, right?
I believe there's some kind of shielding, so you can't use magic on the inside, Eric.
Oh, really? Huh.
This is a reference to, of course, the world of Harry Potter, as I seem to know, but Eric seems to. Do you mean like Harold Porter?
Yeah.
Or,
That's right. Definitely.
And producer Britt, what do you know about magic in prisons?
Not a whole lot. I've heard a lot of stories of people making things disappear, mostly into their butts, but that's about it.
All right. So the amount known is slim to none. So today we're going to be talking about all the intricacies of magic in prisons, some of the history of it. In the popular culture, we do have Azkaban prison, as seen in Harry Potter. The name Azkaban comes from Alcatraz, which is seen as the closest Muggle equivalent. And it's also combined with the word Abaddon. It's a Hebrew word for place of destruction or the depths of hell. And there's also a magic prison escape attempt on the show Arrested Development. Do either of you two remember seeing this?
No, sir.
Vaguely.
So the idea is Job, one of the characters of the show, he swallows a key and he gets incarcerated at Orange County Prison. His plan is he's going to pass the key and exit the prison. But when it's time to try and pass the key, he can't use the bathroom without having privacy. And as we know, there's not much privacy in jail bathrooms. So he ends up unplugging the ice cream sandwich machine, which distracts the prison officials. And then he tries to escape from prison by getting out in a different way. And he gets stabbed by White Power Bill in the prison courtyard. And he ends up getting rushed to the prison hospital, which he considers an escape. And he considers this escape to be a success.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it be a success? I mean, you're in the hospital.
I think it's debatable because the trick did not go off as planned, but he did get out of prison.
Yeah, it's coming back to me now, and he's like in the prison bed, and he's like, "Ta-da!"
yeah, exactly. So those are the two most recent examples of magic in prison in the popular culture, but we've got a history of it. So, magician and escape artist Harry Houdini, he had a long history with prisons. Houdini is most famous for his escapes from handcuffs, but the jailbreaks he did were what really elevated his fame in the first place. So starting in 1899, Houdini would apparently show up to these local jails and state prisons. He would strip himself naked to establish that he was not hiding anything on his person. And he would undergo an inspection by the local medical examiner or a police surgeon, which I don't think is a position at all in modern day. Then they would lock him in a cell with shackles on, and he would emerge a short time later with the cuffs in hand. Pretty cool, right?
Very cool. I mean, just the fact that that you're going in there with almost with nothing that they can see easily. That sounds great. I mean, if you can pull that off.
And Houdini was a bit of a showman. I'm surprised there has not been like some kind of blockbuster movie about Houdini yet, because he is such an interesting historical
so
figure.
There's actually a reason for that. So multiple studios actually have Harry Houdini biopics written, but it's one of those things to where all of the studios know if they put it into production, then another studio is going to like usurp it and put something into production earlier, or like put it into production faster and get it out earlier. Kind of the same thing that happened with like Tombstone and Wyatt Earp.
Or A Bug's Life and Ants, or Armageddon and Deep Impact. I'm always fascinated by these, The Illusionist and The Prestige. I'm fascinated. It feels like every year. The most recent one I can think of is there were 2 GameStop documentaries. There were 2 Fire Fest documentaries. But we get one of it's an interesting social phenomena that we see every few years. So I don't know why they're still on the brakes with the Houdini story, but hopefully we'll see it one day. So Houdini, as a showman, he was a bit of a show off sometimes. Like in Washington, D.C., he visits a prison and he gets locked away. And then while the guards are on the outside, they can't see him. He opens the doors for 8 other inmates and he shuffles them around to different cells. So when the officers come back in, they're like, what the heck is going on?
That's great.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So he went to Europe in 1903, and in Europe, he escaped a Siberian transport cell. It was this metal safe on wheels that they used to carry these political renegades to the prison. And in 1904, he visited Scotland Yard to see the chief constable, and the chief wanted to see what Houdini can do. So Houdini agrees. He gets marched off to a cell. They strip him naked, and then his clothes get triple locked into a nearby cell. And at Houdini's request, all the other doors on the cell block were also locked. Houdini released himself in 5 minutes and returned to the constable fully clothed, and he had opened all the cells in the corridor, and he opened the locked gate.
That's fantastic.
It's incredible.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Just knowing that, because obviously when I had the opportunity messing around with some of the locks on the cell doors every once in a while, it's just knowing how damn difficult it is to mess with those, even the old ones. Because whenever you walk through old prisons that are just there for tours now, they're essentially living museums, right? I always mess with the locks on it. You're like, how the hell could somebody figure that out? Putting that connection together, how the hell did he pull that shit off?
And I'm sure older locks are more primitive than what we have in present day, but still, you're absolutely right. Like, how did he get there?
Right.
We have no choice but to assume it was just magic.
Definitely.
Now, in 1906, for a little bit of local flavor here, Houdini visited Boston. And in Boston, they put him in the city prison, which they called the Tombs. The superintendent put handcuffs on his wrists, leg irons on his ankles, and locked the cell doors. And Houdini escapes. He crossed the prison yard, climbed the wall, and reached a phone nearly half a mile away. And he called the superintendent 20 minutes later. And the superintendent asked him about his escape. And when asked about his escape, Houdini said, "I have nothing to say."
wasn't gonna help them out at all.
No.
Yeah.
He wants to keep the mystery
Oh
alive.
yeah, definitely. Didn't they also throw him off the bridge there in Harvard?
I believe that was something that did happen in that area as well. Yeah. They threw him off the bridge like in handcuffs.
Yeah,
and he emerged.
Yeah, like I can't remember. I just know that I remember hearing something about that a long time ago. That that was one of his. I didn't know that they threw him in the jail there, but that I remember hearing about him being tossed into the river.
Houdini also spent some time in prisons for the benefit of inmates. In 1915, he received an anonymous letter from a person incarcerated in San Quentin in California, and he came to perform there. And he ended up apologizing to the crowd because the warden wouldn't allow him to show his craft. He wasn't allowed to break out of handcuffs or free himself from prison cells because that was seen as something that might encourage others to try and do the same thing, and that is strictly frowned upon.
Oh, that damn warden.
Yeah, this warden is really ruining everyone's fun. But I like that Houdini actually took it upon himself to go and visit inmates and put on a little show. Now, there's a couple schools of thought on how Houdini completed these escapes. One idea is that maybe he got a key in advance and he made an impression of the key in a small box filled with wax, and he would palm this key that was made from the wax, and he would make this duplicate key. And once he had a master key that he could duplicate based on this wax impression, it was no problem. And he would hide the key in his shaggy hair with adhesive wax or with tape under his instep. Sometimes, if he had access to the cell in advance, he might have used gum to stick a key underneath a bench in a cell or under the lock itself when he was pretending to examine the lock one last time before he performed the trick. He also wore these hollow-heeled shoes, and he could open the heel of the shoe by pressing a hidden button on the shoe. How cool is that?
That is very.
I want like shoes with a hidden passage.
Well, think about that. I mean, back in late 1800s, early 1900s, he's doing that. That's cool as hell.
Yeah. Dude was like so far ahead of his time, and also a player. It's rumored on one occasion, Houdini got the key from his wife's mouth during a farewell kiss before an escape. And on another occasion, it's believed he shook the hand of a friend through the bars of a cell. So his friend is wishing him well. They shake hands. His friend passes him the key as they're locking him up. And the man was wearing this ring with a spring clip that like hatched a key out of it. Houdini takes the key from the clip and he escapes.
All very cool. Very, very cool. But you got to figure if other people were in on it, though, you got to figure they would have talked. You know, they would give him up, I think. I don't know. Maybe we're too modern day, but man, that's if he was able to really keep things hidden along with his wife and other people that were in cahoots with him, that's talk about not being a snitch. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how we got these, like the schools of thought on how did he do it? Somebody had to have talked somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
That, or this is all just pure speculation and we still have no idea.
Right. I do remember hearing about a performance in Germany I don't know if you have that where they doubted him and they made him strip down to nothing and they tied him in a chair and he was able to get out within like 5 or 6 minutes, something ridiculous. Because they were like, oh, it's a fake, whatever. This is all. There's nothing real about it, and this isn't magic. And so they tied him up in this chair, and he was able to escape the chair within 5 or 6 minutes. And he was completely naked, very, very, German. Watching him escape in front of the police. That was the fun. The other part about it is he had to do it in front of several hundred police officers.
Houdini is such an interesting figure. I've read a couple books on him, and one book suggested that, like, what if, like, there's this possibility? What if he was also a spy? Because there's no better way to like sneak into places than like in plain sight, and the public trusts him. It's not suspicious because he's shown up to all these different countries to perform magic shows. And he's just somebody that you want to see. So that's been speculated. It's also speculated his death is he would invite strangers to come up and punch him in the stomach just to show off these rock hard abs he had, like we would all do, of course, if we had rock hard abs like Houdini. And some people caught him unaware, and he was like sitting in a hotel one time and near the time of his death, and a guy walks up and just like slams him in the stomach, and he's not tensing up, he's not ready for this, he's not protecting himself, and it's speculated that he died as a result of that due to like something rupturing.
Yeah, I think
inside.
he ruptured his kidney or something like that.
Yeah, that's messed up.
That doesn't sound fun.
No, if you're famous for something like that,
right,
people should not be walking up to you just to punch you.
Right.
This is invitation only. Now, moving on from Houdini, I did watch a clip from season 3 of Criss Angel's famed show Mind Freak. And in this episode, he escaped a prison transport van full of explosives that was going 30 miles per hour, headed for a cliff. It was pretty cool. I gotta say, it's no Houdini, but Criss Angel also brings some magic.
Did you get mind freaked?
I'll admit I was a little bit mind freaked.
Was this performed out in like California or the Vegas, outskirts or somewhere in Nevada, something like that?
Vegas. Yeah.
I think so. Everything was very deserty.
Yeah, he was performing at the Luxor at the time, so. Vegas. Yeah.
I think he's done with any kind of Vegas residency, right?
I think so, yeah.
He's a person I'd be curious to see at some point. I don't want to pay the amount of money it would cost for a ticket to a show, but he is an interesting character, and I'm sure I would be entertained.
All right. Is he more entertaining or is David Blaine?
David Blaine, hasn't David Blaine been hit by several allegations of sexual harassment more recently?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, David Blaine also, he's always struck me as like, yes, he's a magician, but so many of his stuff is just like weird stunts. Remember when he entombed himself in that cube? It was like in
Times Square,
see-through plexiglass cube in Times Square.
Like, the ice.
That's not really magic.
Well, he did it.
Yeah, that's just
ice for like
something.
4 or 5 days or something crazy like that.
Yeah,
these are just spectacle, not magic.
Yeah. But his thing was the whole street magic. Isn't that how he got famous?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like going out in the streets and, doing card tricks and coin tricks where he'd bite the quarter or something.
Yeah. I'm pleased to announce that Criss Angel does still have a residency in Las Vegas at the Planet Hollywood Resort and Casino.
Yay! We should take a prison breakdown sponsored trip out there. Now, somebody mentioned David Blaine. So illusionist David Blaine and Nate Standiforth, in more recent history, they have visited jails to perform magic shows for inmates, which is pretty cool. David Blaine in 2014 went to downtown New York City to the Manhattan Detention Complex, known as the Tombs, previously mentioned, to give a free show for 60 inmates. And the New York Post claimed that rival Crips and Bloods both attended, and they found common ground in cheering him on and being his assistants. But it was met with backlash. David Letterman poked fun at the New York Department of Corrections in one of his top 10 lists later that year, which was titled Things Overheard at David Blaine's Prison Magic Show. Now, who is watching but DOC Commissioner Joseph Pont? He did not have a sense of humor about this, and he fired the warden of the Tombs, Antonio Cuen, for even allowing Blaine to perform there.
Yeah.
So that's too bad and seems unjust.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. I guarantee that is a highlight for a year for those inmates who got to go see that.
Right.
Yeah.
They're probably still talking about it.
I mean, talk about breaking up the monotony of a sentence. That's fantastic.
Right. And you get someone like Houdini performing a show or Johnny Cash performing a show. This is not a bad thing to perform for inmates.
No, it's a damn good thing. I mean,
and
I know there, obviously there's lots of magicians who perform, but there's also comedians that are now going in. And I mean, hell, Jeff Ross went in and roasted inmates.
Do more stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's a great special, by the way. Highly recommend watching that. It's some of the best, like crowd. I'm not a fan of crowd work, but that one is pretty unique and fun.
I will look that up. Jail roast. Now, David Blaine has also visited the maximum security facility in Angola, Louisiana State Penitentiary, for his magic shows. And I watched the clips from this one. He, at one point, bends jail bars in front of a group of prisoners. He's standing in front of this door in the hallway. He's tugging on the bars, and he actually separated them to some degree. It's unexpected. It's not separating them by a lot, but it's an interesting feat of strength to watch. And the inmates were all flummoxed and like, "Oh shit!" Like watching this, as we all would have been.
Yeah, I mean that's nuts. That however he did that, but that had to have been just talk about freaking out some inmates. Saying,
yeah,
what do we got to do to get him back here? Bend some bars, let us escape.
So it's a feat of strength, though. Who doesn't love watching feats of strength?
Yeah.
Are either of you familiar with those like biblical feats of strength? It's like I forget what they call them, but they're like feats of strength shows that are like put on by Christian churches.
Yeah, I saw one time, and they ripped a phone book in half. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Did you actually go to one?
It was at like the Anchorage Baptist Temple. That was in my era when we'd go there like stoned just to like laugh at whatever they were doing. Like Bible Man Live was pretty funny. We went to like Heaven's Gate, Hell's Flames, which is like a live play about going to hell. That was really funny.
Did you cheer on the wrong parts?
Yeah, we definitely like cheered for Satan. Satan,
yeah,
cool.
Satan.
It's funny. Just like teenage edgelord stuff.
Yeah, precisely. This was Alaska when I was like 18 and like stoned. Like what else is there to do in Alaska, right?
Not a lot going on. Now, David Blaine also performed one more trick that was shown on the special. He goes to the prison yard and his shoes are untied and he starts to shake his foot and his shoes end up tied. It's actually a pretty cool trick.
He tied his shoes and that's the trick?
Yeah, but he tied his shoes without using his hands. He just shook his foot and his shoes tied.
Wow.
Explain that to me.
I can't explain it, but that's the level of the entertainment that he gave them.
Yeah, I think it had to be somewhat limited by what they would allow in there. I have to imagine that has something to do with it.
Here, look, a shank. Right? They were going to laugh down.
Yeah. Now, we also saw the champions of magic visiting San Quentin in late 2019. It was this international bunch of escape artists, illusionists, mind readers, and tricksters. They were debuting a show in San Francisco, and they stopped by San Quentin State Prison first, performing there in front of an audience of 300 inmates. And there were tricks like a couple performs one where one person goes into a cardboard box and the other stabs it with 17 spears, and then they come out and show all the holes. If they have spears, like, I guess maybe Blaine wasn't that limited by stuff. They also had a mind reader where a guy wrote down words and the name and age of his sister, and the mind reader determined all these things from across the room. That's pretty cool. They had an escape artist freeing himself from plastic wrap and duct tape, and the performers. They finished the show. They get a tour of San Quentin after, and then they spoke to the press about how much they enjoyed their performance at San Quentin. And they said, we enjoyed this even more than our paid performance in San Francisco. And I've also noted other magicians on Reddit talking about how excellent inmate audiences are. Like, there's no struggle for adult attention. They're happy to get the experience since prison sucks. And sometimes it's even something they can share with their kids on like a children's day when children are allowed to come there.
That's what you got to think. If you're going to go somewhere and hope to have, and boy, the pun here is just so a captivated audience. Sorry, but man, they are just going to be locked in on whatever you're saying, doing, performing, because it's just something out of the norm. That boring, same thing every damn day. That horrible routine that they're dealing with, and here's something to break it up and give them again something else to think about other than their sentence. They're going to be locked in and be blown away by what the hell they're seeing.
Oh, for sure. And anecdotally, if you two had to guess, what comment or question do magicians hear most from inmates and COs?
Oh boy, would that have to be? Hey, can you smuggle me in or can you make me disappear or something, or smuggle me out?
Yes, Eric got it. Can you make me disappear? And what would be the CO question or comment?
It's got to be something about money. Can you make money appear? I don't know.
No. It was on the lines of the first one. COs come up to these magicians and say, "Make sure nobody disappears."
Oh,
right.
How great would it be though if one of these magicians went in there and made an inmate disappear for like 2 hours, and they go to do a count right afterwards? Where'd he go? How much fun would that be?
The most fun. Yeah. I think that would be like a real, like, it'd be like a scavenger hunt for a person. We're all in on this.
Yeah.
Roger Williams University School of Justice Studies.
Thank you, Roger Williams University School of Justice Studies.
We have many programs, including criminal justice, cybersecurity, public administration,
legal studies, forensic science, and leadership.
Roger Williams University School of Justice Studies. So for my next trick, I want to discuss a 2021 article from Prison Legal News. The article is Magic as Rehabilitation by Jason Hawkins.
Love it.
It goes into California inmate Rafael Torre, who's serving life without parole in California. He's been there since 2003. And in his time incarcerated, he developed a passion for magic. And he was not allowed to have cards, so he made decks of cards from milk cartons. And to make some other items, he took some thread from his boxers and cobbled together other items with sponges. And he feels like this has been a good escape from prison life for him, and a good escape and helpful for building his self-esteem. So the movement for magic as rehabilitation apparently started in the early 2000s when Joshua Jay, who is a magician and columnist for Magic Magazine, he encouraged inmates to reach out to him with questions. And many actually did end up reaching out, and he responded to every one of them. And he helped them adapt his tricks to work with the materials that are available at prisons. Also of note in this article is a man named David Garza. He served a sentence in Ohio, and here he details how to make props like poker chips and balls and paper mache fingertips. He uses like toilet paper. He uses glue. He like wets the paper, molds it, dries it, applies these coats of glue, and anything in a jail or prison that is like not of its original, that has been altered beyond its original use, can be considered contraband in many contexts. And because these materials may be considered contraband, several times COs have trashed his magic gear during his incarceration. So he's had to overcome this and start over several times. And so Garza eventually gets released, and his magic skills allowed him to perform professionally on the outside at restaurants and bars around Cleveland, Ohio. To some local acclaim. And he goes by Gilligan Garza, or Gilligan the Magician. And my understanding of his practice is that his normal gigs in bars and restaurants, it went away following COVID, and now he's pivoted to doing like company events and charity performances, banquets, family celebrations, that kind of thing. So we have seen a success story of somebody finding magic in prison and using it on the outside to some success, which is cool.
That's great. I mean, again, I'm sure while incarcerated provided him some positive mental stimulation, something that he was in control of, felt responsible for, all that sort of teaching himself how to do these tricks, worked on his craft, and then obviously it translated to the outside world as well. I mean, that's exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, one thing we talk about in rehabilitation spaces is this idea of if people learn something and they get good at something, this is something that can help increase self-confidence and lead to lower rates of reoffending, because in part, people on the outside are offending because they don't have hard skills. They don't have a trade. They don't have something that they can use to make them money. And this is it's part of like why people like deal drugs, for example. Yeah. It's something that doesn't it's not like skilled labor,
right? And it is
there are many ins and outs of it,
and it's an immediate it's an immediate gratification because you get paid right away. There's not much to it. You get paid right away, so you're getting so hey, I'm good at this. And so they just carry on with it.
Yeah. So if we can help people find their passions in jail or prison and give them some kind of creative outlet like this, that's awesome. There's no downside to that as far as I can see.
No, exactly.
Now, the New York Times in 2020 also covered magic in prisons. And the article was called "In Prison, Learning Magic by Mail." And this article is about the therapeutic part of magic. And the article tells us that starting in World War I, hospitals started using magic for its documented therapeutic effects. But we haven't had very much magic enter the criminal justice system, besides the aforementioned aspects of like Houdini and magicians visiting prisons, with the exception of something called the Hocus Pocus Project.
Love it.
And the Hocus Pocus Project started in 2007, and it's an initiative that sent magicians around New York into juvenile detention centers and into hospitals. This carried on for 10 years until the program ran out of funds in 2017. The director of the Conjuring Arts Research Center who fronted the program, imagine being the director of the Conjuring Arts Research Center. That's pretty spooky and cool. William Kalush was his name, the director. He said people were pretty skeptical about the program. People were worried it would teach inmates to escape from handcuffs. But Kalush argued, no, that's not the case. We're not about that. Magic encourages creativity. Magic gives people an outlet.
Yeah. And again, it's providing these individuals with an opportunity to stimulate their mind, to be creative. Again, something that we are interested in. So, I understand that if you're with the Department of Corrections, you might, well, we need to be concerned about safety and security. But to think that these individuals are going to be taught, magic by mail and, we're going to teach you how to escape from prison. I don't think that monthly package that they're getting from, magic in the mail is actually going to help them get out of the prison.
Yeah, that would be quite a stretch. So we move to the present day and we check in with Criss Angel, who's a man released from prison 2 years prior to this article being written. And Criss Angel is this 43-year-old man who served 23 years in Pennsylvania prisons for charges that included drug possession and theft. And Criss says that magic kept him sane while he was incarcerated. He's a physically small dude who dealt with addiction over time, and magic made him feel like he had some agency while he was incarcerated, which is super important. His nickname was even Magic, which I think is a cool nickname.
That is very cool. Very cool.
So since I'm the one who researched this episode, I would like Magic to be my name.
You can never pick your own nickname.
I'm putting it out there as a strong suggestion if we want to maintain bonds of friendship here. So Criss started learning magic at age 16 while he was locked up in juvenile detention. And while in juvenile detention, they actually allowed for some library trips. So while he's at the library, he picks up some magic books and he starts writing letters to any magicians he can find in the yellow pages, asking for some help with his craft, which I guess I'd never even thought to look under like M for magic in the yellow pages, but the yellow pages don't really exist anymore.
No,
so
don't.
That's not really something we can do. So Criss is also a person who contacted Joshua Jay following Jay's article in Magic Magazine. And the author of the article also reaches out to Joshua Jay. And Joshua Jay says, I never really expected people to reach out to me. Like I was putting this in Magic Magazine hoping somebody would, but I didn't expect it to happen. And Joshua Jay says, yeah, it does make sense. People are in despair. People are experiencing isolation, and magic can provide some wonder. It can provide amazement. And like Criss said just a moment ago here in this article, it can give people agency in prison. It's a place where you feel like you have no control. You are told what time to wake up. You're told what time to go to bed. Your life is not in your hands.
Right.
Your life is in the hands of others. So this gives you some control back in your life, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the other. Not only is it extremely repetitive, just that routine that you have zero control over that routine. The officers are constantly telling you what to do.
So with Joshua Jay, the inmates form this community with him by mail. And inmates start exchanging letters with him. And some of these letters will have step-by-step diagrams and tips and tricks. And inmates started exchanging letters with one another, telling each other how to even make some materials. And it's interesting. This article from the Times actually brings back Gilligan the magician, who he expresses remorse for his selfish crimes in the past. And Gilligan the magician, also known as Garza, he contacted Joshua Jay to let him know the types of materials they had in prison, so Joshua Jay could say, hey, do this with that. And so stuff like pencils, playing cards, cigarettes, I already said pencils.
Yeah. Do they have
pencils?
Do they have
playing
pencils?
Cards. They have pencils and plastic bottles. They have these things. And so Joshua Jay starts designing tricks around these materials. And that's pretty cool that he's so willing to help out and give these guys a look into this outlet that has helped him out so much. Now, our article also touches on 30-year-old Robert Williams. And prior to his arrest, people knew Robert Williams as a guy who could eat a light bulb in 34 seconds.
What?
Yeah, and he's eaten a watch. His joke around that, it's time consuming.
Oh,
I hope you like that.
Yeah.
I can't believe it included that joke in the article. I would like to make it known it's his joke, not mine. Robert Williams also swallowed swords, breathed fire, and pierced his jaw, his hand, and his bicep with long, sharp objects. And besides being a cool-ass magician, he's also a bank robber. And he was arrested at age 22 after his 11th attempted bank robbery. And so Robert is now stuck in prison. He needed materials. There's no props for him to eat. And he said it made him take his magic from the practical to the more psychological. And he designed acts around single props, like the pencil. We also check in with 55-year-old Rafael Torre, who was convicted of murder and given life without parole in 2003. Dude has exhausted all of his options and has no access to the internet, but he ends up passing his time in prison. He's hanging out. He's gaining knowledge of magic from books, from TV, and letters from Jay. And it's something to help keep these guys going. Now, that's all I've got for part 1 on magic in prisons.
I love it.
We'll cover part 2 in a couple weeks, and we'll look at the dark side of magicians and prisons, and we'll also look at some of the other positive aspects that go into practicing magic in these settings.
I think one of the great things that, one of the really positive parts about it is that magic can really, as you talked about having gang members up there being assistants for magician from different gangs. I think that's one of the great things about magic is when you, especially if you have, kids or individuals who haven't seen something, they just get mesmerized by it. And that's one of those opportunities to bring people together in wonder about watching this stuff. So it really is something that could be really positive. But what I'm shocked to hear is that, Siegfried and Roy didn't go behind bars with their kitty cats to perform any magic.
They're kitty cats. I think a tiger is considered contraband. Now, how do you two feel about magic? Do you two like a magic show?
Yeah, it can be fun. It can be, especially I like those magicians who are also able to bring a little comedy into the act, and you can be a bad comedian and wow us with some comedy or with some magic, and you can be a bad magician and make us laugh, and all of a sudden either one works. So who was it, the amazing Jonathan, who used to be that
yeah R.I.P. That guy was great.
Yeah So it's good stuff.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of a magic show. It's a fun art. I'm a big fan of that show, Penn and Teller's Fool Us, where they have the magicians come on and try to fool them with a magic trick and make it so they can't figure out how they did it. That's always fun.
Oh, that's tight. I had not even seen that show before, but I love a magic show. There is something watching it, that that you're watching an illusion, but that makes it that much more interesting. How did they do it? Trying to consider the possibilities. I love that piece of it.
Yeah. Trying to figure out how the hell they did something is, I think, part of the fun of it. Is where is that illusion, and that's just a really entertaining part of it.
Now, shall we move on to some more magic in the podcast with producer Britt's Movie Minute?
The Movie Minute.
Movie Minute. Movie Minute. 60 seconds with producer Britt to talk about movies.
All right, we're gonna need more than a minute here, so put several minutes on the clock. So last week, I believe it was Professor Bronson here who sentenced me to watch OG from 2018 or 2019, depending on what release you're counting. So, OG is a pretty good movie. The movie centers around long-term prisoner Lewis, played by Jeffrey Wright, who is set to be released in 5 weeks after 24 years in prison, and his relationship with a lost new prisoner named Beecher, played by real prisoner Theophis Carter, who's actually in on a 65-year sentence in the facility this was filmed at. The film makes liberal use of an actual prison with actual prisoners and correction officers from Indiana's Pendleton Correctional Facility, and as its extra cast, giving it a much more authentic feel than a lot of other prison films. At its core, the movie asks questions about fatherhood, found family, and mentorship, and whether or not long-term incarceration is the best way to deal with the least desirable in our society. But this movie isn't exactly what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the director, one Miss Madeline Sackler. Now, if that name seems familiar, it's because she is an heiress to the Sackler-Purdue Pharma dynasty.
No way.
In his 2021 book, Empire of Pain, The Secret History of the Sackler Dynasty, author Patrick Radden Keefe notes the mysterious source of funding for the project, likely from Madeline Sackler's inheritance from her family. The prime drivers of America's opioid epidemic. Inasmuch, the film star Jeffrey Wright himself expressed concerns on the film. Wright sent Madeline an email praising the honesty and openness of the men in her movie, but said there's an elephant in the room. Quote, "You've provided a tremendous gift to those men, something the likes of which they've rarely, if ever, been given. But they know nothing of your story. You never spoke to me about any of that. I was aware and only once tried to broach the subject with you. You didn't open up about it. I went on with my work. Do you think you should take into consideration that this will become part of the dialogue around these films?" Unquote.
Oh, Jeffrey Wright is a king.
Jeffrey Wright is an OG, and he OG, the titular OG of this film. Madeline did not respond to him.
Huh.
Of course. Coward.
So the movie was actually good, but I find the motives behind the movie to be dubious, and the funding even more so. It feels like some half-attempt at penance for a wealth received from truly evil means. The movie suffered a bit from a long runtime and a few slow scenes, but is ultimately propped up by fantastic performances from Jeffrey Wright and newcoming prisoner/actor Theophis Carter as Beecher. I give the movie 3.5 soups and a half OxyContin 40.
Would that be usually 4 soups, or is this a different rating system entirely?
It's a different rating system entirely because
it's hard.
I enjoyed the film, but then I looked up the Wikipedia for it, and I'm like, whoa, what?
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
that is fascinating. Yeah. Now, as the judge on the bench this week, we're talking about magic this week and next, and I have no choice but to sentence you to a magic documentary that I've seen called In and of Itself, directed by Frank Oz and starring entertainer, magician, sometimes actor, I think, Derek Delgadio. Okay. In and of Itself. And I'm interested to hear what you think. And Bronson, this is a sentence to you too, if you can find the time.
Okay.
I'm very interested to hear what the two of you think about it.
Sounds good.
Cool.
All right, team. I think that's a wrap.
I think that is, isn't it?
Indeed. If you enjoyed the podcast, even if you didn't, please please rate, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. That could be Spotify, that could be Apple Music, that could be Tidal. I don't care. Producer Britt, what's the platform you use?
I use Overcast.
You can use Overcast if you want to listen to us on there. But we'd like to hear your feedback. And until next time, I'm Professor Beck Strah, joined as always by Eric Bronson and producer Britt. I think that's lights out.
So these thoughts got me too damn scared. Still I fall. I need someone to understand, who's patient when I'm in my head. So these thoughts got me too damn scared. Still I fall. Still I fall. Yeah, I'm falling for you. And I don't know, no. If you feel the way I'm feeling for you. Still I fall. Yeah, I'm falling for you. And I don't know, no. If you feel the way I'm feeling for you, I need someone to understand, who's patient when I'm in my head. 'Cause all these thoughts got me too damn scared. Still I fall. I need someone to understand, who's patient when I'm in my head. 'Cause all these thoughts got me too damn scared. Still I fall. I need someone to understand, who's patient when I'm in my head. 'Cause all these thoughts got me too damn scared. Still I fall. I need someone to understand, who's patient when I'm in my head. 'Cause all these thoughts got me too damn scared. Still I fall. Still I fall.